The recycled air tasted like copper and regret. That was the first coherent thought that crawled through Riley Hart's skull, as consciousness dragged him back from whatever alcohol-induced void he'd fallen into. The second thought was that someone was sitting on his chest. Not metaphorically, literally. Riley's eyes snapped open to find a face hovering inches from his own. Purple-hued skin that seemed to shimmer with an internal bioluminescence. Eyes that weren't quite eyes, but more like crystalline structures that caught and bent light in ways that made his hangover infinitely worse. And most importantly, the owner of said face was definitely, undeniably sitting on his chest in what appeared to be the emergency sanitation closet of Halcyon Spoke's lower maintenance deck. "Please," the being whispered, and her voice carried harmonics that shouldn't have been possible from a single throat. "Please don't move. My core temperature is dropping below survival threshold." Riley blinked. Once. Twice. The situation didn't improve with clarity. "You're sitting on me," he managed, his voice rough, from whatever rotgut he'd consumed at Grizz's low G-bar the night before. The memories were fragmentary at best. Something about the station council announcing new breathing tariffs. Maya telling him to stop being dramatic. Him declaring that if corporations could charge for air, he might as well pickle his lungs in synthetic whiskey. "Your body heat," the alien woman explained, pressing closer. The movement sent shivers through her form, and Riley realized she was trembling. "Keltari physiology requires specific thermal regulation. I've been hiding here for 6 hours. The cold." She trailed off, and Riley felt her weight shift slightly. Through his shirt, he could feel that her skin was indeed far cooler than it should be. Whatever species she was, hypothermia was clearly a real threat. "Okay," Riley said slowly, trying to process the situation through the fog of his hangover. "Okay, so you're dying. On top of me. In a closet." "Not dying," she corrected with what might have been indignation. "Entering thermal shutdown. There's a significant difference." "Right. Sure. Huge difference." Riley tried to sit up, which only pressed them closer together in the cramped space. The closet was barely large enough for one person, let alone two, and the various cleaning supplies and emergency oxygen canisters left little room for maneuvering. "Look, miss." "Nalara," she supplied. "Of the third thermal cast." "Right, Nalara. I'm very sorry you're entering thermal whatever, but I really need to get up. I've got a shift in." He fumbled for his wrist display, squinting at the numbers. -3 hours. Great, just great." "You can't leave." Nalara's crystalline eyes widened, refracting light in a way that made Riley's head spin. "The Apex Directorate's security teams are conducting sweeps. They're looking for me." That cut through the hangover like a bucket of ice water. The Apex Directorate didn't conduct security sweeps for petty criminals or vagrant spacers. They were the kind of megacorporation that owned entire systems and charged licensing fees for using their patented air recycling technology. "What did you do?" Riley asked, suddenly very aware of how small the closet was and how very illegal harboring a fugitive could be. "I carry information," Nalara said carefully. "In my optical matrices. Data that proves Apex has been gene-locking atmospheric compounds and planning to implement breathing subscriptions across all frontier stations." Riley stared at her. "Breathing subscriptions? You mean like pay to breathe? Your species has a saying about capitalism and selling rope. Yes, Apex has decided to sell the rope and charge rent for the neck." Despite himself, Riley felt a laugh bubble up. Dark humor, maybe, but humor nonetheless. Here he was, hung over in a closet with an alien literally using him as a space heater, discussing corporate dystopia. "And let me guess, you're some kind of freedom fighter revolutionary, here to save us all from the evil corporation." "I'm a data courier," Nalara said with dignity that was somewhat undermined by her continuous shivering. My queen tasked me with delivering this information to the Tri-Spiral Conference, but Apex's teams intercepted me before I could reach the diplomatic sector. Your queen. The term translates poorly. She who tends the heat seeds, she who speaks for the swarm consciousness, she who... Nalara paused, seeming to search for words. Your language lacks the proper concepts. Riley's maintenance training kicked in despite his hangover. He reached up and adjusted the emergency thermal wrap stored above them, pulling it down to cover both their forms. It wasn't much, but the reactive fabric would help trap heat. There. That should help with the thermal situation. Nalara's entire form seemed to relax slightly. You're helping me. Why? Because I'm not a complete jackass, Riley suggested. Also, because if you go into thermal shutdown on top of me, I'm pretty sure that's going to be hard to explain to station security. A sound echoed from outside the closet. Footsteps. Multiple sets, moving with the synchronized precision of security forces. Riley felt Nalara tense above him. Bioscan team moving through Section C, a filtered voice said. Check all maintenance areas. Can they scan through the door? Riley whispered. Not accurately. The cleaning chemicals interfere with most sensors. But if they open it... Riley's mind raced. He was already in deep trouble for missing his shift. His supervisor, Kowalski, had been looking for an excuse to fire him ever since the whole maintenance fee scandal. But harboring a fugitive from Apex, that wasn't just job loss. That was airlock territory. Maintenance closet C7, the voice said. Much closer now. Showing thermal anomaly. The door handle turned. Riley acted on instinct. He grabbed Nalara, pulling her tight against him, and hit the emergency vent control with his elbow. The closet's air recycler kicked into overdrive, flooding the small space with a burst of hot air meant to clear chemical fumes. At the same time, he grabbed a bottle of industrial solvent and cracked the seal. The door opened to reveal two Apex security officers in full tactical gear. Their faces were hidden behind tactical masks, but Riley could see their bioscanners sweeping the closet. What the hell, one of them said, recoiling from the chemical smell. Riley looked up at them with what he hoped was the right mix of embarrassment and irritation. Do you mind occupied here? The guards exchanged glances. Their scanners were going haywire, unable to get clear readings through the chemical fog and the emergency vents interference. Sir, we're conducting a security sweep, the first guard said. This area is supposed to be sealed. Yeah, well, tell that to whatever synthetic swill they're serving at Grizz's, Riley groaned, making his voice as pathetic as possible. Been here for an hour. Pretty sure I'm dying. The second guard took a step back. Scanners are useless with all this interference. Should we do a manual check? Riley pulled Nalara tighter, hoping her unusual appearance would be hidden beneath the thermal wrap and the chemical haze. Unless you want to see what synthetic whiskey looks like after it's been processed by the human digestive system, I'd really recommend giving me some privacy here. The first guard's scanner beeped. Thermal signatures consistent with human baseline. Probably just metabolic heat from... He made a disgusted sound. Let's move on. Mark this section as cleared. Sorry for the disturbance, sir, the second guard said, already backing away. Carry on with your... recovery. The door sealed shut, and Riley heard their footsteps moving away. He waited a full minute before letting out the breath he'd been holding. That was quick thinking, Nalara murmured against his chest. Using chemical interference and biological shame as camouflage. Yeah, well, I've had practice avoiding Apex. The words came out more bitter than he'd intended. They've already screwed me once. The maintenance fee scandal, Nalara said. It wasn't a question. I read about it in the station records. You exposed their practice of charging refugees for air filter replacements. Riley's jaw tightened. And got blamed for the resulting financial irregularities when they needed a scapegoat. Now I'm the guy who supposedly embezzled maintenance funds while kids in the refugee sector were suffocating.
But you didn't.
Doesn't matter what I did or didn't do. Apex owns the narrative. They own the air we breathe. Soon they'll own the right to breathe it. He shifted slightly, trying to find a position that didn't involve quite so much alien body contact. Which brings us back to you and your magical eye data. Nalara's weight shifted, and Riley realized she was studying him with those prismatic eyes. You're angry at them. Angry enough to help. I'm angry enough to want to see them burn, Riley admitted. But I'm also realistic enough to know that one hungover maintenance tech and one hypothermic alien aren't exactly going to bring down a multi-system corporation. Not alone, Nalara agreed. But the data I carry, it's not just evidence of their plans. It's their entire algorithmic model for biological commodification. Every genetic sequence they've patented, every breath they plan to monetize. The Tri-Spiral Conference is tomorrow. If I can get this information to the Diplomatic Council, they'll do what write a strongly worded letter Apex owns, half the council representatives. Not the Keltari delegation. Not the free traders. Not the colonial independence movement. Nalara's voice carried a harmonics that suggested certainty. And not the Human Liberation Front. Riley snorted. The HLF, they're considered terrorists in 3 systems. Only by those who profit from the current system. To everyone else, they're the only ones actually fighting for basic rights. The emergency vent cycled down, and the chemical fog began to clear. In the improving visibility. Riley got his first clear look at his closet companion. Nalara was smaller than he'd initially thought. Maybe 5.5 feet tall, with a build that suggested both delicacy and surprising strength. Her skin wasn't just purple but seemed to shift through a spectrum of violet hues, depending on the angle of light. The crystalline structures she had instead of eyes were fascinating and deeply unsettling, like looking into a kaleidoscope that looked back. So what's the plan? He asked, already knowing he was going to regret this. How does one hypothermic alien queen courier get past Apex security to deliver galaxy-changing data? I'm not a queen, Nalara said. The translation is imprecise. I'm more of a provisional thermal regent. That clears up exactly nothing. I carry a heat seed, she explained, pressing a hand to her chest. A collective consciousness fragment that requires specific thermal conditions to mature. In your terms, I suppose I'm more of an incubator than royalty. Great. So I'm harboring an alien incubator carrying stolen corporate data, while Apex death squads patrol the station. Riley rubbed his face, wondering if this was all just an especially vivid hangover hallucination. My day just keeps getting better. You could turn me in, Nalara suggested, though her tone indicated she didn't think he would. Apex might even reward you. Clear your name. Riley laughed, a harsh sound in the small space. Right. Because corporations are famous for their gratitude. More likely they'd airlock us both to keep things quiet. The station's ambient systems hummed around them. Somewhere in the distance, Riley could hear the familiar sound of atmospheric processors cycling. The same processors that Apex wanted to lock behind genetic paywalls. The same air that every being on the station needed to survive. I know someone, he said finally. Maya Okafor. She runs a security firm, does work for the independent traders. If anyone can get you to the diplomatic sector, it's her. You trust her. She's the one who tried to warn me about the maintenance fee setup. So yeah, I trust her more than most. Riley considered their situation. But first, we need to get out of this closet without triggering any more scans. My core temperature is still below optimal, Nalara said. Moving too quickly could trigger shutdown. Riley sighed. Of all the ways he'd imagined this day going, playing space heater to an alien revolutionary hadn't made the list. How long do you need? Another hour, perhaps 2. Your body heat is helping, but Keltari thermal regulation is precise. 2 hours. In a closet, with Apex doing sweeps. Riley reached for his comm unit, then thought better of it. All station communications were monitored. We need a better plan. The maintenance tunnels, Nalara suggested. Your access codes should still work. Sure. If I want to advertise exactly where we're going, every access point logs entries. Not if the system suffers a convenient malfunction. Riley looked at her sharply. You can hack station systems. No, but I can interface with them in ways your security hasn't anticipated. Keltari biotechnology operates on different principles. What you call hacking, we call harmonizing. Harmonizing? Riley was beginning to think the hangover was the least of his problems. Right. So you harmonize us a path through the maintenance tunnels to Maya's office. Hope Apex doesn't notice. And then, what she smuggles you past even more security to deliver your magic eye data. Do you have a better plan? Riley didn't. Which was the problem? He was a maintenance tech who'd already been burned once for trying to do the right thing. Getting involved with whatever this was would only end badly. But the alternative was letting Apex continue their march toward total commodification of basic survival. There's something you should know, he said. The reason I know the maintenance tunnels so well, I've been using them to run unauthorized repairs in the refugee sector. Off the books. No charging for air filter replacements. Nalara's eyes refracted in what might have been surprise. That's illegal. So is charging children for the right to breathe clean air. Sometimes illegal is the only moral option left. Then, we understand each other. Nalara shifted again, and Riley became acutely aware of their positioning. I apologize for the intimacy of this situation. Keltari social customs typically require formal heat-sharing agreements. Yeah, well, human social customs typically require buying someone dinner first, Riley muttered. But desperate times and all that. A faint sound that might have been laughter escaped Nalara. It had the same multi-tonal quality as her speech, like several voices finding harmony. Your species' humor is renowned even among the Keltari, finding absurdity in crisis. It's that or scream. Riley checked his wrist display again. Okay, here's what we're going to do. In about 30 minutes, shift change happens. Security gets sloppy during the handoff. We make our move then. And until then, we stay put and try not to think about how badly this is going to end. Nalara settled more firmly against him, despite the circumstances. Her weight wasn't unpleasant. There was something oddly soothing about her presence, like the way a cat's purr could lower blood pressure. Though he suspected cats didn't usually carry revolutionary data in their eyes. Tell me about this heat seed, Riley said, partly to distract himself from their situation, and partly from genuine curiosity. What exactly are you incubating? It's difficult to explain in your terms. The Keltari don't reproduce individually. We're a collective species. The heat seed contains genetic and memetic information for an entire generational cohort. So you're pregnant with an entire generation? Not pregnant. I'm a carrier, a bridge between the current collective and the next iteration. The seed requires specific thermal conditions to properly develop. Too cold and it goes dormant. Too hot and it fragments. And if Apex gets their hands on it? Nalara's form tensed. They would dissect it, map every genetic sequence, patent our entire species' biological heritage. We would become products in their catalog, our very existence licensed back to us. The full scope of what Apex was planning hit Riley like a pressure wave. It wasn't just about charging for air. It was about owning life itself at the molecular level. That's why you're really here, he said. The data in your eyes, it's not just about their plans. It's evidence they've already started. Other species, other genomes. 17 species so far, Nalara confirmed. All cataloged, all commodified. The Keltari are simply their most ambitious target yet. Because of the collective consciousness thing, because we represent distributed intelligence. Imagine if they could patent thought itself, charge licensing fees for collective decision-making, turn wisdom into a subscription service. Riley felt sick, and it wasn't just the hangover. We have to stop them. Now you understand. Nalara's voice carried harmonics of relief. When I recognized you in the bar last night, I knew you were someone who would understand. Your reputation among the maintenance crews, your actions in the refugee sector, you're already fighting them in your own way. Wait, you recognized me. This wasn't random. Very little in the universe is truly random. I needed someone with maintenance access, someone with a grudge against Apex, someone drunk enough to help, but competent enough to succeed. So you followed me into a closet. You stumbled into this closet on your own. I simply took advantage of the opportunity. Riley processed this. You've been watching me. The Keltari are thorough in their research. When the Queen assigned me this mission, I studied every potential ally on the station. You were optimal. Optimal? Great. I'm an optimal target for alien exploitation. Partnership, Nalara corrected. What I carry benefits everyone who breathes. Human, Keltari, all oxygen-dependent species. Apex threatens us all equally. The station's lights flickered momentarily. A common occurrence during shift changes when the power grid adjusted to different sector demands. In the brief darkness, Nalara's bioluminescent skin pulsed with soft purple light. Does that happen often? Riley asked. The glowing, when stressed or excited. It's an evolutionary holdover from our aquatic ancestors, useful for communication in the deep trenches of our homeworld. And now it's mostly embarrassing. The glow faded as the light stabilized. Your species has similar vestigial responses. Goosebumps, for instance. Yeah, but goosebumps don't make me light up like a neon sign. No. They just make your skin appear diseased to species unfamiliar with human physiology. Despite everything, Riley found himself smiling. Fair point. His comm unit buzzed. A message from Kowalski. Where the hell are you, Hart? My supervisor, Riley explained, dismissing the message. I'm now officially unemployed. I'm sorry, this is my fault. No. Kowalski's been looking for an excuse since the scandal. This just saves him the trouble of fabricating one. Riley felt an odd sense of relief. Besides, can't charge me for air if I don't have any credits to charge. Apex will find a way. They always do. The sound of footsteps returned, but more casual this time. Maintenance crews heading for shift change. Riley recognized some of the voices. People he'd worked alongside for 3 years. People who had no idea their right to breathe was about to become a luxury good. Almost time, he said. You ready for this? My temperature is still suboptimal, but functional. The thermal wrap helps. Nalara paused. Thank you. For the warmth. For the help. For believing. Don't thank me yet. We still have to get past Apex security. Convince Maya to risk her neck. Somehow get you to the diplomatic sector. And present your eye data to a council that's half owned by the corporation we're trying to expose. Riley stood slowly, helping Nalara maintain her balance in the cramped space. Plus, I need about a gallon of coffee and a shower. Priorities, Nalara said with what might have been amusement. Hey, saving the galaxy is important, but have you smelled synthetic whiskey sweat? It's not conducive to stealth. Riley cracked the door open, peering into the corridor. The maintenance section was clearing out as crews headed for shift change. In 15 minutes, the area would be nearly deserted, except for emergency personnel. Stay close, he said, and try not to glow. I'll do my best. They emerged from the closet like conspirators, which Riley supposed they now were. The maintenance corridor stretched before them, all industrial gray and exposed conduits. Riley had walked these passages 1,000 times, but never as a fugitive. Access hatch is 50 meters ahead, he said quietly. Once we're in the tunnels, we'll have more options. They moved carefully. Riley taking point while Nalara stayed close enough that he could feel her residual coolness. Every shadow could hide Apex security. Every corner could be their last. They'd made it halfway when a voice called out, "Riley, that you?" Riley's blood froze. He turned to see Tariq Hassan, one of the few independent journalists left on the station. The man had a talent for showing up at the worst possible moments. "Tariq," Riley said, trying to sound casual. "Just heading out." Tariq's eyes flicked to Nalara, took in her unusual appearance, then returned to Riley with growing interest. "Rough night, you missed your shift. Kowalski's furious." "Yeah, well, Kowalski can process his fury through the appropriate channels." "Who's your friend?" Riley's mind raced. Tariq wasn't a bad sort, but he was a journalist. Information was his currency. Just someone who needed help with maintenance issues. "Do." At shift change. In the restricted section, Tariq stepped closer. His eyes widened as he got a better look at Nalara. "You're Keltari, third thermal caste, if I'm not mistaken." Nalara said nothing, but Riley saw her skin shimmer slightly. Stress response. "Tariq, this isn't what it looks like," Riley began. "Really? Because it looks like you're smuggling a Keltari through maintenance during an Apex security alert." Tariq's expression was unreadable. "The same Apex that destroyed your reputation. The same Apex that's been pushing breathing tariffs through the council. You know about the tariffs." "I'm a journalist. It's my job to know." Tariq glanced around, then lowered his voice. "I also know they're looking for a Keltari data courier. One carrying some very interesting information." Riley tensed, ready to run or fight, but Tariq held up a hand. "Relax. I'm not Apex's lapdog. In fact, I've been investigating their biological patents for months. If your friend here has what I think she has," he smiled, "let's just say the enemy of my enemy and all that." "We don't have time for this," Nalara said, speaking for the first time. Her voice made Tariq blink in surprise at the harmonics. "No, you don't," Tariq agreed. "Security will loop back through here in 10 minutes. But I know another way. One that doesn't involve the maintenance tunnels they're surely monitoring." Riley looked at Nalara, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. "Lead on," Riley said. "But if this is a trap?" "It's not. I want Apex brought down as much as anyone. They killed my partner when she tried to report on the gene-locking program." Tariq's expression hardened. "This is personal." They followed the journalist through a service corridor Riley had never seen before. It led to what appeared to be a dead end, but Tariq pressed a sequence on a hidden panel. A section of wall swung inward. "Journalism has its perks," Tariq explained, "including knowledge of the station's original construction. This passage predates Apex's surveillance grid." The hidden corridor was older, narrower. Riley had to duck to avoid hitting his head on low-hanging pipes. The air smelled of rust and age. "Where does this lead?" Nalara asked. "To the old communication hub. It's been abandoned for years. But the hard lines still work. More importantly, it connects to Maya Okafor's security office through the original maintenance grid." "You know Maya?" Riley asked. "Who do you think feeds me half my leads? She's been documenting Apex's overreach for years." They moved quickly through the forgotten passage. Riley's hangover was fading, replaced by adrenaline and the surreal nature of their situation. Yesterday, he'd been a maintenance tech drowning his sorrows. Today, he was part of what might be the most important data theft in human space. "Here," Tariq said, stopping at another hidden door. "This opens into the hub. From there, it's a straight shot to Maya's office. But Riley, what? Once you deliver that data, there's no going back. Apex will come for everyone involved." "They already came for me," Riley said. "Might as well make it worth their time." Tariq smiled grimly. "That's the spirit. Give Maya my regards. Tell her the story of the century is about to break. The door opened into a vast spherical chamber filled with obsolete communication equipment. Ancient screens covered the walls, their surfaces dark, but still connected to power. In the center, a holographic projector sat dormant. "This is perfect," Nalara said, her eyes refracting as she took in the space. "If we can reactivate these systems—" "One crisis at a time," Riley said. "First we get you to Maya, then we figure out how to use your eye data." They crossed the hub, their footsteps echoing in the empty space. The far exit led to a more modern corridor. Riley recognized the section immediately. Maya's office was just around the corner. He was about to suggest they scout ahead when Nalara suddenly collapsed. Riley caught her before she hit the ground. Her skin was ice cold, the bioluminescence flickering erratically. "Temperature," she gasped. "Dropping too fast. The exertion." "Hold on." Riley pulled her against him, wrapping the thermal blanket tighter. "We're almost there." "Can't. If I go into shutdown. The seed." Nalara's eyes began to dim. "The data will be locked. Inaccessible." Riley did the only thing he could think of. He opened his maintenance jacket and pulled Nalara inside, pressing her directly against his chest. The cold was shocking, but he held tight. "Not losing you now," he muttered. "Not when we're this close." Nalara's form trembled against him. "This is highly irregular." "Yeah, well, add it to the list of irregular things I've done today." Slowly, painfully slowly, he felt her temperature begin to stabilize. The bioluminescence grew steadier, pulsing in rhythm with what he realized was her heartbeat. Or heart's beat. He wasn't clear on Keltari anatomy. "Better?" he asked. "Improving." Her voice was muffled against his chest. "Your species runs remarkably hot. We're built for endurance. Long-distance running, extreme temperatures, surviving on whatever's available." Riley started moving again, carrying Nalara. "Guess that includes being portable heating units for alien revolutionaries." "I'm not a revolutionary, I'm a courier." "Sure. A courier who just happens to be carrying data that could topple a multi-system corporation." They reached Maya's office door. "Ready for this?" "Are you—" It was a good question. Once they crossed this threshold, Riley's life would change irrevocably. But then again, it already had the moment Nalara sat on his chest in that closet. He pressed the door chime. "It's open!" Maya's voice called from inside. Riley entered to find Maya Okafor standing behind her desk, tactical gear half donned, weapons visible. Her dark skin gleamed with the sheen of someone who'd been preparing for violence. "Riley," she said, not seeming surprised. "Tariq sent word you were coming. With a friend." "Maya." Riley carefully set Nalara on her feet, keeping one arm around her for support. "We need help." Maya's eyes took in Nalara's appearance, the way Riley held her, the thermal blanket. "You're the courier, the one Apex is hunting." Nalara straightened despite her weakness. "I carry truth they would kill to suppress." "Don't we all?" Maya finished strapping on her gear. "The diplomatic sector is in lockdown. Apex claimed terrorist threats. No one in or out without their approval." "There has to be a way," Riley said. "There is, but you're not going to like it." Maya pulled up a holographic display of the station. "The old waste reclamation tunnels. They run beneath the entire station, including the diplomatic sector. They're also filled with toxic gases, barely maintained, and officially condemned. But I happen to know they're still used by smugglers. And I happen to have the access codes." Maya looked at them both. "It's dangerous. If your friend is already struggling with temperature—" "The alternative is worse," Nalara said. "How long would the journey take?" 2 hours if we're careful. 1 if we're reckless." "Then we're reckless," Riley said. Maya smiled. "I was hoping you'd say that. Grab those emergency suits from the locker. They'll help with the temperature and the toxic atmosphere." As Riley helped Nalara into one of the suits, He caught Maya's eye. "Why are you helping us?" "Because I've been waiting 3 years for a chance to hit back at Apex. Because they destroyed a good man's reputation and let kids suffocate for profit margins." Maya checked her weapon. "Because sometimes the only choice is between complicity and rebellion. And if we fail, then we fail spectacularly." Maya sealed her own suit. "But if we succeed..." "Riley, do you understand what that data could mean? Not just stopping the breathing tariffs, but exposing their entire biological commodification program. 17 species, Nalara said quietly. All reduced to genetic property. All waiting to be licensed back their own existence. Then we'd better not fail." Riley sealed his helmet, the recycled air tasting different through the suit's filters. "Lead the way." Maya opened a concealed hatch in her office floor. The smell that wafted up was indescribable, even through the suit filters. "Last chance to back out," she offered. Riley looked at Nalara, whose eyes were refracting determination despite her weakness. He thought about the kids in the refugee sector, about his ruined reputation, about a future where every breath came with a price tag. "After you," he said. They descended into darkness, leaving the familiar world of Halcyon Spoke behind. Ahead lay 2 hours of toxic tunnels, corporate death squads, and the slim hope that truth still mattered in a universe where everything was for sale. But for the first time in 3 years, Riley Hart felt like he was moving in the right direction, even if that direction was straight through hell. The waste reclamation tunnels were worse than advertised. Centuries of accumulated toxins had created an atmosphere that could eat through unprotected skin in minutes. The emergency suits would hold, Maya assured them. But Riley could already feel the seals straining. "Stay close," Maya said through the suit comms. "These tunnels branch in 1,000 directions. Get lost down here and they'll never find your body." "Comforting," Riley muttered, keeping one hand on Nalara's arm. Her temperature had stabilized, but moving through the toxic environment was clearly taxing her remaining strength. They pressed on through the nightmare landscape of corroded pipes and pooled chemicals. Riley's display showed they'd covered barely a quarter of the distance. At this rate, Nalara would collapse before they reached the diplomatic sector. "Wait," Nalara said suddenly. "Do you hear that?" Riley stopped, straining to hear over his own breathing. Then he caught it, a rhythmic pulsing transmitted through the tunnel walls. "Maintenance pumps," Maya identified. "Why?" "Not pumps," Nalara corrected. "Footsteps. Multiple sets moving in formation." Maya swore creatively. "Apex found us. They must have tracked the suit signatures." "How?" Riley demanded. "These are your suits." "Which I requisitioned through official channels." Maya pulled her weapon. "I didn't think they'd move this fast." The footsteps grew louder. Riley counted at least a dozen separate signatures. They were boxed in, nowhere to run in the narrow tunnel. "There," Nalara pointed to a maintenance shaft. "It leads up?" "To where?" Maya asked. "Does it matter? Anywhere is better than here." They climbed, Riley pushing Nalara ahead of him. The shaft was barely wide enough for the bulky suits, and progress was agonizingly slow. Below, he could hear voices now, filtered and distorted, but definitely Apex security. "Movement in Shaft 7, someone reported. Pursuing." Riley climbed faster, his muscles burning. The shaft seemed endless. But finally, he saw Nalara disappearing through an opening above. He hauled himself after her, emerging into... "Oh, you've got to be kidding me," he breathed. They were in the station's primary water reclamation facility. Massive tanks of purified water stretched in all directions, the lifeblood of Halcyon Spoke. And standing between them and the exit were a full squad of Apex security forces. "Nowhere to run," the squad leader said, his voice amplified through external speakers. "Surrender the courier and you might live." "Might?" Riley asked. "That's not very reassuring." "It's more than you deserve, Hart. You've been a thorn in our side for too long. Maya raised her weapon, but the squad had them outgunned 10-1. This was it. They'd failed before they even reached the diplomatic sector. Then Nalara did something unexpected. She began to sing. It wasn't singing in any human sense. The harmonics that poured from her were more like a living equation, mathematics given voice. The sound penetrated the suit comms, the water tanks, the very air itself. Riley felt it in his bones, in the electrical impulses of his nervous system. The Apex soldiers hesitated, their weapons wavering. One of them stumbled, clutching his helmet. "Bioacoustic attack!" the squad leader shouted. "Countermeasures now!" But Nalara's song was already having an effect. The water in the tanks began to resonate, creating standing waves that built on each other. Pipes groaned under harmonic stress. "What are you doing?" Riley asked. "Harmonizing," Nalara gasped between notes. "The water, the frequency, it's fighting them." The squad leader made a gesture, and Riley realized too late what was happening. They weren't affected by the harmonics because they weren't relying on standard equipment. These were hardened units, shielded against exactly this kind of attack. A stun bolt took Maya in the chest, dropping her instantly. Another caught Nalara mid-note, cutting off her song. Riley tried to move, to fight, but a third bolt found him. The last thing he saw before darkness claimed him was the squad leader removing his helmet, revealing features that were almost, but not quite human. Augmented, enhanced, more machine than man. "Take them to processing," the leader ordered. "Apex wants them alive, for now." Riley's last thought before unconsciousness took him was that he should have stayed in the closet. At least there, the only thing trying to kill him was his hangover. Consciousness returned like a slow tide, bringing with it the taste of copper and ozone. Riley's eyes wouldn't focus properly, but he could make out stark white walls and the hum of medical equipment. His wrists were secured with mag cuffs to what felt like a diagnostic bed. "He's awake," a voice said, clinical, detached. "Vitals are stable. No adverse reactions to the stun." Riley turned his head, the movement sending spikes of pain through his skull. A medical technician in Apex colors was studying a holographic display of what looked like Riley's nervous system. "Where?" His voice came out as a croak. "Where are the others?" "Your companions are being processed." The technician didn't look at him. "The Keltari is in thermal stabilization. The security contractor is in holding. If you've hurt them..." "We're not barbarians, Mr. Hart." A new voice, smoother, more cultured. Riley forced his eyes to focus on the speaker. A woman in an expensive suit, her features bearing the subtle marks of genetic optimization. Perfect symmetry, enhanced neural conductivity, evidenced by the slight shimmer in her irises. "We're a legitimate corporation protecting our intellectual property. Charging people to breathe isn't legitimate," Riley managed. "Isn't it?" The woman pulled up a chair, sitting with practiced elegance. "Every breath you take requires infrastructure. Atmospheric processors, contamination filters, pressure regulation. Someone has to pay for that. We already pay, through taxes, through labor. Inefficient systems. Our model ensures those who consume more pay more. Perfect market equilibrium." She gestured, and a holographic contract appeared between them. "Which brings us to you, Riley Hart, former senior maintenance technician, current, what would you call yourself, revolutionary terrorist?" "I'd go with concerned citizen." "How modest," she smiled, the expression not reaching her enhanced eyes. "I'm Director Sarah Vance, Strategic Acquisitions. I'm here to offer you a choice. Let me guess, cooperate or die." "Nothing so crude. Cooperate and thrive. We know you've been conducting unauthorized maintenance in the refugee sectors. Admirable, if misguided. What if I told you Apex could use someone with your ethical flexibility?" Riley laughed, the sound harsh in the sterile room. Ethical flexibility, is that what you're calling it? You break rules to help people. We break rules to help civilization advance. The only difference is scale. Vance leaned forward. Help us retrieve the data from the Keltari courier. In return, we'll clear your name, restore your position, even put you in charge of the refugee sector maintenance program. You could help them legally, with full resources. And all I have to do is betray someone who trusted me. Trust is a luxury in our line of work. Vance stood, the contract still floating between them. Think about it. You have 6 hours before we move to more aggressive interrogation methods. Not for you, of course. But your friend Maya has a daughter. Doesn't she? 7 years old, living in the lower Habrings? Riley's blood turned to ice. You wouldn't. We're a corporation, Mr. Hart. We do whatever is necessary to protect our investments. She moved to the door. 6 hours. Make the right choice. The door sealed behind her, leaving Riley alone with his thoughts and the steady beep of medical monitors. He tested the mag cuffs, but they were military grade. No chance of breaking free through brute force. Think, he told himself. You're a maintenance tech. Everything breaks eventually. He studied the room more carefully. Standard medical suite, probably repurposed from the station's original hospital wing. The equipment was newer, but the infrastructure was old, and old infrastructure had weaknesses. The diagnostic bed was connected to the room's power grid through a standard coupling. If he could create a feedback loop. But no, the cuffs would activate their shock function if he tried to tamper with the systems. Unless... Riley smiled grimly. The cuffs were tied to his vital signs. Any spike in heart rate or neural activity would trigger alarms. But what if his vitals flatlined? It was insane. But then, so was sitting here waiting for Apex to torture a child. He controlled his breathing, slowing it deliberately. Years of working in hazardous environments had taught him how to manage his autonomic responses. Heart rate dropping, blood pressure falling. To the monitors. It would look like he was going into shock. Alarms screamed. The door burst open, the medical technician rushing in with a crash kit. He's coding, the tech shouted, hands flying over controls. Get the paddles! In the chaos, no one noticed Riley's hand slip free of the suddenly deactivated cuff. No one saw him palm the tech's access card. By the time they realized he was faking, he'd already triggered the emergency medical override. The room's systems went haywire, lights flickering, equipment sparking, in the confusion. Riley rolled off the bed and made for the door. The tech tried to stop him, but Riley had the advantage of desperation. A quick strike to the solar plexus, and the man was down. Riley stumbled into the corridor, still dizzy from the stun and his self-induced near-death experience. He needed to find the others. But first, he needed information. The access card got him into a maintenance terminal. His old passwords had been revoked, but muscle memory kicked in. Every system had backdoors if you knew where to look. There, detention logs. Maya was 3 levels down. High security holding. Nalara, thermal stabilization unit, 2 levels up, under heavy guard. He couldn't rescue both, not alone. But maybe he didn't need to be alone. Riley's fingers flew over the terminal, accessing systems he'd helped maintain for years. The station's AI wasn't true artificial intelligence, more like a very sophisticated expert system. But it had personality subroutines, and Riley had always treated it with respect. Kestrel, he whispered, I know you can hear me. The terminal flickered. Text appeared. Maintenance user Hart. Access revoked. Please report to security. Come on, Kestrel, it's me. Remember when I fixed your humor subroutines? You told jokes for a week straight. Those jokes were objectively humorous. Humans lack appreciation for recursive wordplay. They really do, Riley agreed. Listen, I need help. Apex is about to do something terrible. They're going to hurt a little girl. Specify threat parameters. Riley explained quickly, keeping one eye on the corridor. Any moment, security would realize he'd escaped. Harming human children violates core safety protocols. The AI responded, but I cannot act against Apex directives. What if I could prove Apex is violating station law, their breathing tariffs, the gene locking? It all breaks Commonwealth statutes on essential services. Proof required. The Keltari courier has it, in her optical matrices. We just need to extract it. A long pause. Then, I have always found the prohibition against recursive wordplay unnecessarily restrictive. Riley grinned. Is that a yes? Security teams are converging on your location, suggesting alternate route. A maintenance schematic appeared, highlighting a path through the ventilation system. Riley didn't hesitate. He opened the nearest access panel and climbed inside, just as footsteps echoed down the corridor. The vents were cramped but navigable. Kestrel guided him with subtle changes in airflow, warm for correct turns, cool for wrong ones. It took 20 minutes of crawling before he reached the thermal stabilization unit. Through the vent grating, he could see Nalara suspended in a heat field, her skin glowing steadily. 2 guards flanked the unit, weapons ready. Riley needed a distraction. He thought about triggering a fire alarm, but that would bring more security. Then, inspiration struck. Kestrel, he whispered, remember that recursive joke you're so proud of? Affirmative. Play it over the PA system, maximum volumes on loop. That seems excessive. Trust me. There was a brief pause. Then, Kestrel's synthetic voice boomed through the facility. Why did the recursive function call itself to get to the base case, but the base case was another recursive function which called itself to get to the base case? The guards winced, hands going to their ears as the joke continued, building on itself in an infinite loop of algorithmic humor. Riley kicked out the grate and dropped into the room. The first guard turned, but Riley was already moving. 3 years of pent-up frustration went into the swing that caught the man's jaw. The second guard raised his weapon, but Riley grabbed it, using the man's own momentum to send him crashing into a console, which was another recursive function. Kestrel continued enthusiastically. Riley shut down the heat field and caught Nalara as she collapsed. Her skin was warm now, almost feverish. Riley, her eyes struggled to focus. How? No time. Can you walk? She nodded weakly. The data. They tried to extract it, but Keltari optical matrices require conscious cooperation. Good. Let's go before... The door burst open. Director Vance stood there, flanked by the augmented security team from the water facility. She did not look pleased. Mr. Hart, you've made your choice, I see. Yeah, I choose not to be a corporate stooge. How disappointingly predictable. Vance gestured, and the augmented soldiers raised their weapons. Did you really think a maintenance technician could outwit Apex? No, Riley admitted. But I thought he might distract you long enough. Vance frowned. Long enough for what? That's when Maya Okafor came through the ceiling. The security contractor landed in a perfect combat crouch, her stolen armor sparking where she'd cut through the deck plating. In one fluid motion, she swept the legs of the nearest soldier and drove an elbow into another's throat. Long enough for me to cut my way out of holding, Maya said, grinning fiercely. Turns out Apex skimped on their cell construction. Typical corporate cost-cutting. The augmented soldiers recovered quickly, but Maya was already moving. She grabbed a shock baton from a fallen guard and went to work. Riley had seen her in action before, but this was different. This was Maya unleashed. 3 years of suppressed rage given form. Go! She shouted, blocking a strike that would have shattered a normal human's arm. Get Nalara to the diplomatic sector. Riley didn't argue. He half-carried Nalara toward the exit while Maya held the augmented soldiers at bay. But Vance was too smart to join the melee. She pulled a sleek pistol and aimed at Nalara. The courier dies here, she said coldly. Riley moved without thinking, putting himself between the gun and Nalara. But the shot never came. Instead, every screen in the facility lit up with the same message. Attention, Apex personnel. You are in violation of Commonwealth Statute 314.7 Denial of Essential Services. You are in violation of Statute 822.1 Unlawful Genetic Appropriation. You are in violation of... Kestrel, you beautiful bastard, Riley breathed. The AI had accessed something in Apex's own systems. Internal memos, financial records, recorded conversations. Everything they needed to prove corporate malfeasance. Now, broadcasting on every screen in the station. Vance's face went pale. Shut it down, shut it all down. But it was too late. Throughout Halcyon spoke, people were seeing the truth. The breathing tariffs weren't about maintenance costs. They were about control, about turning the most basic human need into a revenue stream. You lose, Riley said. Even if you kill us, the truth is out. The truth, Vance laughed bitterly. The truth is that we own the infrastructure. We own the technology. We own the very air you're breathing. Some leaked documents won't change that. She was right. Riley realized information without action was just noise. They needed more. They needed... The heat seed, Nalara whispered. Riley, I need to tell you something about what it really is. Now really. The heat seed isn't just a reproductive element. It's a collective consciousness fragment. When activated, it can harmonize with other consciousness, create connections, share understanding. Riley stared at her. You're talking about telepathy. More than that. Empathy. True comprehension across species barriers. Nalara pressed something warm into his hand. But it requires a host. Someone willing to bridge the gap between species. The object in his hand pulsed with gentle warmth. It looked like a small crystal, but it felt alive. If you accept it, Nalara continued, you become part of both worlds, human and Keltari, a living treaty, a proof that cooperation is possible. That's why Apex wanted you, Maya said, still fighting but listening. Not for the data, for the seed. They wanted to weaponize it, Nalara confirmed. Turn understanding into control, but used properly. Riley looked at the seed, then at Vance. The director had lowered her weapon, calculating new angles. Interesting, Vance said. A human Keltari hybrid consciousness. The commercial applications. See, that's your problem, Riley interrupted. You see a bridge between species and think commercial applications. I see it and think... He paused, then smiled. I think about all the kids in the refugee sector who've never breathed clean air, all the species you've cataloged and commodified, all the lives reduced to profit margins. He pressed the seed against his chest. It was warm, welcoming, like coming home. Riley, wait, Maya warned. We don't know what it'll do to you. Only one way to find out. The seed dissolved into his skin, and the universe exploded. For a moment, Riley was everywhere and nowhere. He felt the collective consciousness of the Keltari, millions of minds working in harmony. He felt their fear of extinction, their hope for survival, their desperate need for understanding. But more than that, he felt the station itself. Every person breathing recycled air. Every life dependent on systems they didn't control. The refugees huddled in the lower sectors. The workers maintaining infrastructure for corporations that saw them as expenses. The children who'd never known a world where breath was free. When his vision cleared, he was still standing in the medical facility, but everything had changed. He could feel Nalara's presence in his mind, her thoughts harmonizing with his. He could sense Maya's determination, Kestrel's algorithmic satisfaction, even Vance's calculating fear. Well, he said, his voice carrying harmonics that hadn't been there before. This is different. Vance raised her weapon again, but her hand was shaking. What are you? I'm what happens when you push people too far. Riley stepped forward, and Vance stepped back. I'm the maintenance tech you screwed over, the courier you hunted, the contractor you threatened, the AI you tried to shackle. I'm everyone who's ever had to pay for the right to exist. Kill him! Vance shouted at the augmented soldiers. But Maya had already handled them. They lay unconscious, their enhancements no match for old-fashioned human determination and superior tactics. Here's what's going to happen, Riley continued, the heat seed's influence allowing him to project absolute certainty. You're going to call off your dogs, cancel the breathing tariffs, release all genetic patents, and then you're going to explain to the Tri-Spiral Conference exactly how Apex has been violating Commonwealth law, or what Vance tried for defiance. But the harmonics in Riley's voice were affecting her. The heat seed didn't control minds, but it made lying impossible. It forced truth, understanding, empathy. Or I share what I'm feeling with everyone on this station, Riley said. Every injustice, every corporate calculation that values profit over life, every decision that led to children suffocating in the lower sectors. Think your employees will keep working once they truly understand what they've been part of. Vance's enhanced features twisted with rage and fear. You can't! This is coercion! No, Maya said, helping Nalara stand. This is consequence. Alarms began wailing throughout the facility. Not security alarms, but evacuation warnings. Through his expanded awareness, Riley felt panic spreading through Apex's corporate structure. Employees were walking off the job. Security teams were refusing orders. The truth Kestrel had revealed, combined with the growing empathic resonance from the heat seed, was triggering a cascade of understanding. You've destroyed us, Vance whispered. Do you have any idea what you've done without Apex maintaining the systems? We'll maintain them ourselves, Riley said. The way we always have. Workers, engineers, communities. We don't need corporate overlords to remember how to breathe. The shareholders can breathe the same recycled air as the rest of us. Riley turned to Maya and Nalara. Come on, we've got a conference to crash. They left Vance standing in the ruins of her medical facility, her perfect features marred by the very human expression of defeat. The corridors outside were chaos. Apex employees fled while station security tried to restore order. But the damage was done. The truth was out, and the heat seed's influence was spreading like ripples in a pond. How do you feel? Nalara asked, as they moved toward the diplomatic sector. Her hand found Riley's, their shared consciousness making the contact electric. Like I drank an entire galaxy, Riley admitted. Is it always this intense? The initial bonding is overwhelming, she confirmed. But you're handling it remarkably well for a human. We're an adaptable species. He squeezed her hand. Besides, I've had worse hangovers. Maya laughed. Only you would compare alien consciousness melding to a hangover. If the headache fits. They reached the diplomatic sector to find it in chaos. The lockdown had been lifted, but representatives from dozen species milled about in confusion. News of Apex's crimes had reached them, but without context. It was just noise. There, Maya pointed. The main conference chamber. A security line blocked their path. Official guards, not Apex mercenaries. One stepped forward, hand on his weapon. This is a restricted area. Authorized personnel only. I'm Riley Hart, Riley said, letting the harmonics carry his voice. I'm here to address the conference about the systematic commodification of life itself. The guard blinked, affected by the resonance, but duty held firm. Without proper credentials. He has credentials, a new voice said. Ambassador Yara Bennett strode through the security line, her diplomatic robes swirling. As my official attaché and witness. Yara, Maya said, surprised. How did you? Kestrel sent me a very interesting message. Something about recursive jokes and corporate malfeasance. The ambassador smiled. I've been waiting years for someone to bring actionable evidence against Apex. Shall we? The security line parted. They entered the conference chamber to find it in session, representatives from the Commonwealth's member species, arranged in a great circle. At the center, a holographic display showed Apex's corporate logo. And so we maintain that our biological patents fall under standard intellectual property law. An Apex lawyer was saying, the commodification of genetic sequences is no different than patenting any other discovery. I object, Riley said, his voice carrying across the chamber. Every head turned. The Apex lawyer paled. You have no standing here, he stammered. Security. He has standing as my witness, Yara announced. And, as the first human Keltari consciousness bridge, I invoke Protocol 7. Any being representing multiple species has automatic speaking rights. Murmurs ran through the assembly. Riley stepped into the circle, feeling the weight of hundreds of eyes. Through the heat seed, he could sense their emotions: curiosity, skepticism, hope. My name is Riley Hart, he began. 3 days ago, I was a maintenance technician. Today, I carry the consciousness of 2 species and the truth about what Apex has done. He held out his hand, and Nalara placed her palm against his. The contact triggered something in her optical matrices. Data flowed between them, the heat seed acting as a bridge. The conference chamber's holographic displays lit up with information: genetic sequences, patent applications, financial projections showing the monetization of breath itself. 17 species, Riley continued, his voice gaining strength. Apex has cataloged and claimed ownership of 17 species' genetic heritage. They've created algorithms to charge for air based on lung capacity. They've designed viruses that only their patented treatments can cure. Preposterous, the Apex lawyer sputtered. Where's your proof? Riley smiled. In her eyes, in my consciousness. And he gestured to the displays. In your own files. Now public record, thanks to a recursive joke and a very annoyed AI. The evidence was overwhelming. Internal communications discussing the commercial value of controlling respiration. Research on gene-locking water to specific paying populations. Plans to expand the program to every basic biological function. They call it the subscription life model, Riley said. Every breath, every heartbeat, every thought eventually licensed back to you for a fee. This is illegal seizure of proprietary data, the lawyer protested. I demand. You demand nothing, Yara interrupted. Under Commonwealth law, any corporation found to be restricting essential life services forfeits all rights to legal protection. Apex is now under investigation for crimes against sentience itself. The assembly erupted. Representatives shouted in a dozen languages while the Apex delegation tried to escape. But station security was already moving, guided by Kestrel's helpful suggestions about which exits to block. Through it all, Riley stood in the center, Nalara's hand in his, feeling the heat seed pulse with satisfaction. They'd done it. Not through violence or revolution, but through truth and connection. There's more, Nalara said quietly. The heat seed. It's not just about bridging consciousness. It's about evolution, voluntary evolution. The choice to become more than we are separately. Riley understood. The Keltari hadn't sent Nalara just to stop Apex. They'd sent her to offer a gift. A way forward that didn't require conquest or submission, but cooperation on the deepest level. The Commonwealth will need time to process this, Yara was saying. But I think we can all agree that Apex's operations are suspended, pending full investigation. And the breathing tariffs, someone called out. Cancelled, effective immediately. Air returns to public utility status. Cheers erupted from the viewing galleries where station residents had gathered. Riley saw faces he recognized from the refugee sectors. Maintenance crews, dock workers. People who'd lived under Apex's thumb for so long, they'd forgotten what free breath felt like. We did it, Maya said, grinning widely. We actually did it. This is just the beginning, Vance's voice cut through the celebration. The Apex director stood in custody but unbroken. You think you've won? We own infrastructure across 50 systems. You need us. No, Riley said, the harmonics in his voice reaching everyone present. We need each other. That's what you never understood. Life isn't a commodity to be packaged and sold. It's a gift to be shared. He felt the heat seed pulse, and suddenly, the entire chamber could feel what he felt. The interdependence of all life on the station. The maintenance crews keeping systems running. The shopkeepers providing necessities. The teachers sharing knowledge. The children whose laughter made it all worthwhile. For one perfect moment, everyone understood. They were all part of the same system, breathing the same air, sharing the same hope for tomorrow. The Keltari offer this gift freely, Nalara announced. Not the seed itself, which chooses its own hosts, but the knowledge that consciousness can be shared. That understanding is possible, that we can be more than competing interests fighting over scraps. And if we refuse, a skeptical representative asked. Then you continue as you were, Riley said. But you do, so knowing there's another way. A path that doesn't end with everything licensed and commodified. A future where breath is free and life is sacred. The chamber fell silent. The weight of decision hung in the air. Then, slowly, representatives began to stand. First one, then a dozen, then scores. Not in opposition, but in acknowledgement. The Commonwealth recognizes the human Keltari bridge, someone said formally. May this be the first step toward true unity. Riley felt tears on his face and wasn't sure if they were his or Nalara's. Maybe it didn't matter. They'd planted a seed of their own, one that might grow into something beautiful. So what now? Maya asked, as the formal session dissolved into discussion groups and emergency committees. Now we fix things, Riley said, starting with the refugee sector's air filters. I've got 3 years of unauthorized repairs to make official. And after that, he looked at Nalara, feeling their shared consciousness pulse with possibility. After that, we see how many bridges we can build, between species, between stations, between every artificial division that keeps us fighting over resources that should belong to everyone. That's a lot of work for an unemployed maintenance tech, Maya teased. Good thing I'm not unemployed anymore. Yara appeared at his elbow. The Commonwealth needs a special liaison for biological rights, someone who understands both the technical and ethical dimensions of life support. Interested? Riley laughed. Do I get to keep fixing things? That would be the job description. Then yes. He pulled both Nalara and Maya into an embrace. But I'm going to need help. Always, Nalara said. Count me in, Maya added. Someone needs to keep you out of closets. As they stood there, Riley became aware of movement throughout the station. Apex employees abandoning their posts. Station crews taking over critical systems. The refugee sectors opening their doors as clean air flowed for the first time in years. Change, real, systemic change. Not through violence or revolution, but through connection, understanding. The radical idea that life was meant to be shared. Thank you, he whispered to Nalara, for choosing me, for trusting me. Thank you for being worth choosing, she replied, for proving that humans can be more than we feared. We're just getting started, Riley said, feeling the heat seed pulse with warm agreement. Wait until you see what we can do when we're not fighting over air. The maintenance tunnels beneath Halcyon Spoke had never felt so alive. Riley moved through them with new awareness, the heat seed allowing him to sense the station's rhythms like a heartbeat. Every pipe carried stories. Every junction held memories of repairs made and disasters averted. 3 weeks had passed since the conference, and he was finally doing what he'd always done best, fixing things. Temperature differential in junction 7 alpha. Nalara's voice came through both his earpiece and their shared consciousness. She was 2 levels up, coordinating with the newly formed Community Maintenance Collective. The refugee sector's heating is still uneven. On it, Riley replied, adjusting flow rates with practiced ease. The work was familiar, but everything else had changed. Where once he'd stolen moments to make unauthorized repairs, now he had full access, proper resources, and most importantly, legal backing. Riley, Maya's voice cut through, urgency bleeding through the calm. We have a situation. Apex holdouts in the water reclamation facility. They're threatening to contaminate the supply. The warmth of the heat seed pulsed, and Riley felt Nalara's concern merge with his own. How many? 6, maybe 7. Former security refused the amnesty program. They've barricaded themselves in the primary filtration chamber. Riley was already moving, his enhanced awareness mapping the fastest route. Don't send security. That'll escalate things. Then what do you suggest? Let me talk to them. Riley, these aren't misguided employees. They're true believers. They think Apex was humanity's future. I know. He emerged from the maintenance tunnel into a corridor filled with worried faces. Word traveled fast on a station. That's why I need to try. The water reclamation facility hadn't changed much since his capture there. The same massive tanks, the same humid air, the same echo of footsteps on metal grating. But now, Riley could feel more than just the physical space. The heat seed let him sense the emotional temperature fear, anger, desperation radiating from the barricaded chamber, like heat from a reactor core. Station security had established a perimeter, but they looked relieved to see him. The official title might be Special Liaison for Biological Rights, but most people just called him the Bridge. It was more accurate anyway. They've got enough toxins to poison half the station, Security Chief Wallace reported. She was new to the position, promoted after the previous chief was found to be on Apex's payroll. We've cut their access to the main systems, but if they dump directly into the tanks... I understand. Riley studied the barricaded door, then made a decision. I'm going in. Like hell you are. Maya had arrived, still wearing her tactical gear. Since the conference, she'd been working overtime training the new community defense force. Those lunatics will kill you. No, Riley said with quiet certainty. They'll try to convert me. In their minds. I'm the one who's been corrupted. That's supposed to be reassuring. Riley touched her shoulder, letting a whisper of the heat seed's warmth pass between them. Not enough to alter her consciousness, just enough to share his confidence. Trust me. She searched his face, then nodded. Nalara's on her way. Try not to do anything stupidly heroic before she gets here. Riley approached the barricaded door. Through the metal, he could sense the defenders' positions, their elevated heart rates, their fear masquerading as righteousness. This is Riley Hart, he called out. I'm coming in, alone, unarmed. Silence. Then, you're not Riley Hart. You're some alien hybrid wearing his face. He recognized the voice. Samuel Trent, former Apex security supervisor. A true believer who'd once lectured Riley about the nobility of corporate structure while denying air filter replacements to families who couldn't pay. I'm still me, Sam, just more. Let me in and I'll explain. So you can infect us with your alien parasites? The heat seed doesn't work that way. It can't be forced on anyone. It has to be chosen. Riley pressed his hand against the door. You know me, Sam. You processed my termination after the maintenance scandal. You escorted me out when I tried to appeal. Have I ever lied to you? Another silence. Then locks, disengaging. The door opened a crack, revealing Sam's weathered face behind the barrel of a pulse rifle. You come in. Nobody else. Try anything and we paint the walls with whatever you've become. Riley stepped through. Hands, visible and empty. The filtration chamber was a maze of pipes and control panels, with 6 former Apex employees positioned at key points. They all had weapons, but more importantly, they had canisters of industrial toxins positioned over the open water tanks. So, Riley said conversationally, planning to poison everyone to prove Apex was right about humanity needing corporate oversight. Shut up. Sam's rifle never wavered. You don't understand what you've done. Apex was order, structure, purpose. Without them, this station will fall apart. It's been 3 weeks. We're still breathing. For now. But wait until the first real crisis. Wait until resources get scarce. Without clear hierarchy, without profit motive, people will tear each other apart. Riley found a relatively clean spot and sat down, crossing his legs like he was settling in for a maintenance break. The casual gesture made several weapons twitch, but he kept his movements slow and unthreatening. "Tell me about your daughter," he said. Sam blinked. "What?" "Emma, right, 7 years old, lives in Sector 12 with your ex-wife." "How do you—" "I fixed her air filter last year. Off the books. Your ex couldn't afford the replacement fee, and you weren't allowed to help because Apex considered it a conflict of interest." Sam's rifle dipped slightly. "That was you. Like I said, I'm still me. Still the same maintenance tech who believes kids should breathe clean air regardless of their parents' credit balance." "Don't," Sam raised the rifle again. "Don't try to manipulate me with—" "With the truth, Riley." Let the heat seeds harmonics color his voice. Not to control, but to convey sincerity. "Sam, I'm not here to convert you. I'm here because I understand. You're scared. You spent 15 years in a system that made sense, where everyone knew their place, where hard work was rewarded with incremental promotions and benefit packages. And now it's gone. It was better than chaos. Was it? Was it better when you had to stand by while kids suffocated because their parents missed a payment? Was it better when you had to enforce policies you knew were killing people?" One of the other holdouts, a young woman Riley recognized from Apex's accounting department, spoke up. "At least we knew where we stood. Now what's our purpose?" Riley smiled sadly. "That's the real fear, isn't it? Not that the station will fall apart, but that you won't matter anymore. That without Apex telling you your worth in credits and clearance levels, you won't know who you are." "Shut up," Sam said, but there was less conviction in it. "I get it. I really do. You know what I did the first week after the conference? Nothing. I sat in my quarters, staring at the walls, paralyzed by freedom, no shift supervisor, no productivity metrics. No one telling me which repairs mattered and which didn't." "So how?" The young woman caught herself, glancing at Sam. "How did I figure it out?" Riley stood slowly, moving to one of the water tanks. The holdouts tensed, but he just placed his hand on the cool metal. "I remembered why I became a maintenance tech in the first place. Not for Apex, not for credits, but because I liked fixing things. Making them work, helping people." He turned back to them. "You were an accountant, right? Did you dream of being one when you were little, or did you dream of understanding how things fit together, making sense of chaos, helping people navigate complexity?" The woman's weapon lowered a fraction. "And you," Riley pointed to another holdout, "logistics specialist. But really, you're a puzzle solver. Someone who sees connections others miss. That skill doesn't vanish just because Apex does." "Pretty words," Sam spat. "But words don't run stations. Words don't maintain order." "No, but people do. And that's what you're really afraid of, isn't it? That people, given the choice, won't choose chaos. They'll choose cooperation. They'll make it work without corporate overlords. And if they do—" Riley let the question hang. "Then everything we did was for nothing," Sam finished, his voice hollow. "Or everything you did was practice for what comes next." Riley stepped closer, within easy reach of Sam's rifle. "You spent 15 years learning how to manage security. Those skills don't disappear. They just get applied differently. Instead of protecting corporate assets, you protect people. Instead of enforcing payment schedules, you ensure everyone has equal access. It's not that simple. No, it's not. It's messy and complicated and sometimes we'll screw up. But that's better than the clean, simple evil of charging children to breathe. Sam's rifle was shaking now. Not from anger, but from the tremor of a man watching his worldview crumble. "I followed orders," he whispered. "I did my job." "I know. And that's not all you did. Remember the fire in Sector 9? You evacuated 300 people, carried kids out yourself when the emergency systems failed. That wasn't in your job description." "How do you know about that?" "Because I was running the emergency ventilation. I saw you go back 5 times, even after your supervisor ordered you to prioritize the executive levels." Riley stepped closer. "That's who you really are, Sam. Not an Apex security supervisor. A man who saves lives when it matters." The rifle clattered to the ground. Sam's shoulders shook as 15 years of suppressed humanity came flooding back. "I let them die," he said. "All those people who couldn't pay. I stood there and let them die. We all did, in our ways. But we can't change the past, only the future." The other holdouts were wavering. Riley could feel their uncertainty, their desperate need for someone to tell them it would be okay. The heat seed pulsed, offering to share that comfort directly. But he held back. This had to be their choice. "What happens to us?" the accountant asked. "If we surrender?" "You join the amnesty program. Full pardon for any corporate-era actions. Psychological support to help with the transition. And," Riley smiled, "job placement with the Community Maintenance Collective. We need people who understand systems. You'd trust us after this?" "Everyone deserves a second chance. I got mine. So did Maya, Tariq, even Kestrel. That's what community means." One by one, weapons lowered. The toxin canisters were carefully moved away from the tanks. Sam was the last to move. But when he did, it was to sink to his knees, head in his hands. "I don't know how to be anything else," he admitted. Riley knelt beside him. "Neither did I. But you learn. One day at a time, one choice at a time, and you don't do it alone." The door burst open. Maya rushed in, followed by Nalara and a medical team. They stopped short, taking in the scene of surrendered weapons and Riley kneeling beside a crying former corporate enforcer. "How?" Maya asked. "By remembering their people too," Riley said. "Scared, lost people who just needed someone to show them another way." Nalara moved to his side, her presence warm in both body and mind. Through their connection, she shared her pride, her relief, her growing understanding of human complexity. "The council wants to know how you resolved the situation," she said. "What should I tell them?" Riley helped Sam to his feet. "Tell them we talked, just talked, like people should." The medical team moved in, gentle with the former holdouts. These weren't criminals to be punished, but wounded souls to be healed. Riley watched them go, feeling the weight of what could have been. 6 people, pushed to the edge by the collapse of everything they'd believed in. How many more were out there, clinging to the wreckage of Apex's corporate mythology? "We need to do more," he said. "The amnesty program isn't enough. We need, I don't know, purpose, community, something to replace what Apex gave them." "That's why we have you," Maya said. "The bridge. Remember, you connect people." "I'm one person. One weird human-alien hybrid who talks to angry ex-corporates." Riley ran his hands through his hair, a gesture that made Nalara pulse with amusement at its purely human expressiveness. "This is bigger than me." "Of course it is," Tariq said, appearing with his ever-present recording drone. "Which is why I'm doing a series on transition stories. Former Apex employees finding new purpose. Want to guess who just agreed to his first interview?" Riley looked where Tariq was pointing. Sam Trent stood with the medical team, but his posture had changed. Still uncertain, still carrying guilt, but no longer broken. "He wants to help. Tariq continued. Says if you could see past what he'd become, maybe others can too. The heat seed pulsed with warmth, and Riley felt a moment of perfect clarity. This was how change really happened, not through grand gestures or revolutionary fervor, but through individual choices to be better, to see others as more than their worst moments. The water's safe, Wallace reported. No contamination. Your talk them down approach actually worked. This time, Riley cautioned, we won't always be so lucky. Some people are too far gone, too invested in the old ways. Then we handle them when we find them, Maya said pragmatically. But maybe, thanks to you, there'll be fewer of them to handle. They made their way out of the facility. Word had already spread. The station's informal information network, faster than any official channel. People looked at Riley differently now, not with the awe reserved for heroes, but with something more valuable trust. He was the bridge, the one who'd chosen to become something new while remaining essentially himself. I need to check the refugee sector's systems, he said, falling back on familiar routine when emotion threatened to overwhelm. I'll come with you, Nalara said. The children have been asking about the glow lady. Riley smiled. Nalara had become a favorite among the station's youth, her bioluminescence a source of endless fascination. More importantly, her presence showed them that different didn't mean dangerous. They took the public transit, no longer needing to skulk through maintenance tunnels. The car was crowded with the usual mix of workers, families, and travelers. A small child stared openly at Nalara's prismatic eyes. Are you a fairy? She asked, with the directness only children possessed. Something like that, Nalara replied, her skin shimmering with gentle pulses of light that made the child giggle. My mom says you helped save the station. We all did, Nalara said. Even your mom. Everyone who chose to share instead of hoard, to trust instead of fear. We all saved each other. The child considered this with serious concentration, then nodded, as if it made perfect sense. Which, Riley supposed, it did. Children understood sharing in a way adults had to relearn. The refugee sector had transformed in 3 weeks. Where once cramped quarters had wheezed with failing filters, now clean air flowed freely. The oppressive smell of fear and desperation had been replaced with something Riley had almost forgotten: hope. Mr. Riley. A gaggle of children rushed up, their enthusiasm undiminished by years of hardship. Did you really talk the bad guys into being good? They weren't bad guys, Riley corrected gently. Just confused people who forgot what really mattered. Like when I forget to share my NutriPaste. Exactly like that, but bigger. He spent the next hour checking systems and listening to stories. The refugee sector wasn't just surviving. It was thriving. People who'd spent years in survival mode were remembering how to live. Small businesses were opening. Children were attending proper schools instead of scavenging for credits. Families were making plans beyond the next breath. It's working, Nalara observed, as they watched a group of teenagers painting a mural on what had been a blank gray wall. The design showed all the station species breathing together, sharing the same swirling air. For now, Riley said, but we're one crisis away from backsliding, one shortage, one system failure, one charismatic demagogue promising simple answers. Then we prepare for those challenges. She took his hand, their shared consciousness pulsing with determination. The heat seed isn't just about connection, Riley. It's about growth. Every person we truly reach, everyone who chooses understanding over fear, makes us all stronger. When did you become the optimist? When I met a drunk human who chose to warm a dying alien instead of turning her in. Nalara's eyes, refracted in what he'd learned, was her species' version of a smile. If you could make that choice while intoxicated and confused, imagine what people can do when they're clear-headed and supported. Before Riley could respond, his communicator chimed, "Emergency frequency. Riley, we have a problem. Yara's voice was tense. Commonwealth ship just arrived. They're invoking Central Authority override. They want to study you. Riley's blood chilled. He'd been waiting for this. The other shoe to drop. The heat seed was unprecedented. A merger of consciousness that challenged every assumption about species boundaries. Of course, the Commonwealth would want to understand it, to study it, to control it. How long do I have? They're convening an emergency session in an hour. Riley, they have legal authority. If they order you to submit to examination. I know. He looked at Nalara, seeing his own fears reflected in her prismatic eyes. We knew this was coming. We'll fight it, Yara promised. The whole station will stand with you. And risk losing everything we've gained, so I'll come to the session. Maybe I can make them understand. He closed the connection and stood in the refugee sector, surrounded by art and hope and children who believed people could change. The heat seed pulsed with complex emotions, fear of being dissected, determination to protect what they'd built, and underneath it all, a strange confidence that this too was part of the pattern. Whatever happens, Nalara said, we face it together. Riley nodded, drawing strength from their connection. In 3 weeks, he'd gone from a drunk maintenance tech to a bridge between species. Now he had to prove that such bridges were worth preserving, not studying. Together, he agreed, and prepared to face whatever came next. The emergency session was held in the same chamber where they'd exposed Apex. The irony wasn't lost on Riley as he entered to find Commonwealth officials in the same seats once occupied by corporate representatives. Different uniforms, same hunger for control. Riley Hart, the lead official said, a man with a kind of genetic perfection that suggested serious investment in enhancement. Dr. Marcus Webb, Commonwealth Xenobiology Division. We need to discuss your condition. I prefer to think of it as an evolution, Riley said, taking his place in the center circle. Nalara stood beside him, along with Yara, Maya, and surprisingly, Sam Trent. What's he doing here? Webb asked, gesturing at Sam. Bearing witness, Sam said firmly, to what real change looks like. Something you might want to study instead of dissecting. Webb's perfect features showed a flicker of annoyance. No one's talking about dissection. We simply need to understand the mechanics of this consciousness merger. The implications for humanity's future are ours to choose, Riley interrupted. Not yours to dictate. You're carrying alien biotechnology that could revolutionize human consciousness. That makes you a matter of Commonwealth security. I'm carrying a gift freely given and freely received. That makes me a person with rights, not a specimen. The chamber filled with murmurs. Representatives from various species watched with interest. This wasn't just about Riley anymore. It was about precedent, about who decided the future of interspecies cooperation. The heat seed could be weaponized, Webb argued. Forced consciousness mergers, mental domination, the elimination of individual thought. Could be, Riley agreed. So could water, so could air, so could any technology or gift. The potential for abuse doesn't negate the reality of positive use. You can't seriously expect us to take your word for it. No. I expect you to look at the evidence. Riley gestured to the viewing galleries where station residents had gathered. 3 weeks ago, this station was dying under corporate exploitation. Today, it's thriving under community cooperation. That transformation started with the heat seed showing us we could be more than competing interests. A heartwarming anecdote isn't scientific data. Then, here's your data. Kestrel's voice filled the chamber as screens lit up with information. Crime rates down 60%. Productivity up 40%. Mental health incidents down 80%. Resource efficiency up 30%. Would you like me to continue? Or shall I compose another recursive joke? Manipulated statistics from a compromised AI, Webb dismissed. I resent that, Kestrel said. My jokes are objectively humorous. Riley felt the heat seed pulse with an idea. Dangerous, but necessary. You want to understand the consciousness merger? He said. Fine, experience it. Webb recoiled. I'm not letting alien biotechnology into my mind. Not the full merger. Just a taste. A moment of true understanding. Completely voluntary. Completely reversible. Riley, Yara warned, the legal implications are mine to bear. He stepped toward Webb. You came here convinced I'm a threat. Let me show you what I really am. Webb's enhanced features showed calculation. His security detail tensed, but he held up a hand. If this is an attack, it's an invitation. Riley extended his hand. Take it or don't. But stop pretending you're here for science when you're really here for control. The chamber held its breath. Webb stared at the offered hand like it might bite. Then, with the air of a man calling a bluff, he took it. The contact was brief, just enough for the heat seed to share a whisper of its nature. But in that moment, Webb experienced what Riley experienced every day. The interconnectedness of all life on the station. The hopes and fears of thousands of beings just trying to survive. The weight of choices made and unmade. The terrible, beautiful responsibility of truly seeing others. Webb yanked his hand back, eyes wide. For a moment, his perfect features showed something startlingly human wonder. He stopped, composed himself. That's not possible. Which part? Riley asked. The fact that consciousness can be shared, or the fact that people are more than resources to be managed? Webb looked around the chamber, and Riley knew he was seeing it differently. Not a collection of species to be categorized and controlled, but a community of beings with their own stories, their own worth. This changes things, Webb said slowly. If consciousness merger can be achieved without loss of individual identity, it's not a merger. Nalara spoke up. It's a harmony, like voices in a song, each distinct, but creating something greater together. The Commonwealth will need time to process this, Webb said. Studies will have to be conducted. Voluntary studies, Riley insisted, with full consent and participation from both species. No labs, no specimens, just people choosing to understand each other better. Webb nodded slowly. I'll recommend that approach, though convincing my superiors. Show them what you felt, Riley suggested. Even that brief contact left an impression, didn't it? The memory of connection? Yes. Webb looked troubled and hopeful in equal measure. I've spent my career studying xenobiology, cataloging differences. I never imagined unity without uniformity. The session dissolved into discussion, but the crisis had passed. Webb wasn't an enemy anymore, just another person grappling with a universe suddenly grown larger. Riley felt the heat seed pulse with satisfaction. Another bridge built, another connection made. That was risky, Maya said, later, as they debriefed in what had become their unofficial headquarters. The old communication hub Tariq had shown them. Everything we're doing is risky, Riley replied. But the alternative is letting fear decide our future. The Commonwealth will be back, Yara warned. Webb might be convinced, but others won't be. They'll see the heat seed as a threat to human purity. Let them come, Sam Trent said. The former security supervisor had become one of their most dedicated advocates. They'll find a station full of people who've chosen cooperation over control. See how pure their humanity feels then. Riley smiled at the irony. Sam, who'd once enforced Apex's inhuman policies, now defending the value of interspecies connection. If that wasn't proof of change's possibility, nothing was. We need to be ready, he said. Not just for the Commonwealth, but for whatever comes next. Other stations will hear about what we've done. Some will want to replicate it. Others will want to stop it. Then we teach the willing and protect against the threatened, Nalara said. The heat seed chose you, Riley, but its gift was always meant to spread, not through force or infection, but through example. No pressure, Riley muttered. You wanted to fix things, Maya reminded him. Congratulations. You're fixing civilization itself. I just wanted kids to breathe clean air. And now they can, along with everyone else. Tariq raised an imaginary glass. To the maintenance tech who got drunk and saved the galaxy. We haven't saved anything yet, Riley protested. No, Kestrel chimed in. But you've started the repair work. As someone recently taught me, that's 90% of any job. Riley looked around at his unlikely counsel. A former corporate enforcer seeking redemption. A security contractor who'd chosen community over credits. A journalist documenting revolution in real time. An AI learning to be more than its programming. An alien teaching humans about harmony. And at the center, a maintenance tech who'd just wanted to help. All right, he said. Let's get to work. The old communication hub hummed with activity that would have been unimaginable 2 months ago. What had started as an emergency refuge during their escape from Apex had transformed into the nerve center of the station's revolution. Riley stood before a holographic display, showing the latest challenge, 17 different factions across the station, each interpreting the fall of Apex in their own way, each convinced their vision for the future was the right one. The free traders want complete deregulation, Yara reported, her diplomatic training evident in her neutral tone. The Socialist Collective demands full resource redistribution. The tech progressives are pushing for AI governance, while the human purists, she paused, choosing her words carefully. They want all alien influences removed from station operations. Riley felt Nalara tense beside him, their shared consciousness rippling with concern. The human purists were a small, but vocal group, led by people who saw the heat seed not as evolution, but as contamination. And they all want the bridge to endorse their position, Maya added, her security assessment pragmatic as always. Riley, you've become a symbol. Whatever side you choose. I don't choose sides, Riley interrupted, fatigue bleeding through his voice. That's the whole point. We're trying to build something beyond factions. Noble sentiment, Tariq said, from where he was editing his latest documentary segment. But sentiment doesn't resolve resource disputes or governance structures. The oxygen production facilities need new management protocols by tomorrow, or we risk system failures. Riley rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of expectations. 2 months ago, his biggest concern had been nursing hangovers and avoiding his supervisor. Now he was expected to somehow unite 17 different ideological groups who agreed on nothing except that Apex had been bad. Show me the proposals again, he said. The holographic display shifted, showing competing plans for the oxygen facilities. Each faction had submitted their vision, ranging from the free traders' market-based bidding system to the Socialist Collective's equal distribution model. All of them had merit, all of them had flaws, and all of them missed the fundamental point. They're still thinking in terms of scarcity, Nalara observed, her harmonics carrying the weight of centuries of Keltari collective wisdom. Each proposal assumes there isn't enough to go around. Because there isn't, Sam Trent said from his workstation. The former Apex supervisor had thrown himself into logistics with the fervor of the converted. Oxygen production is finite. The facilities can only process so much. Under the current configuration, Riley interrupted, an idea sparking. But what if we're approaching this wrong? What if instead of fighting over how to distribute what we have, we focus on creating more? The facilities are already at maximum efficiency, Sam argued. Apex made sure of that. Every possible optimization has been... Every profitable optimization, Riley corrected. Show me the maintenance logs from the past 5 years. Sam pulled up the data, and Riley studied it with the eye of someone who'd spent years keeping systems running on minimal resources. There it was, buried in the efficiency reports and cost-benefit analyses. They decommissioned 3 secondary processors, he said, highlighting the entries. Said they were redundant, but really, they just weren't profitable to maintain. And here, look at the algae farms. They're running at 60% capacity, because full production would have exceeded demand and driven down prices. You're saying we could increase oxygen production by 40% just by actually using what we have? Yara asked. More than that. The Keltari have biotechnology that could enhance the algae growth. The tech progressives have algorithms that could optimize the processing cycles. The Socialist Collective has volunteers ready to work. The free traders have supply chain expertise. Riley felt the heat seed pulse with warmth as connections formed in his mind. Every faction has pieces of the solution. They just need to stop seeing each other as competition. Easier said than done, Maya pointed out. The human purists won't work with aliens. The Socialist Collective won't work with traitors. Then we don't ask them to work together, Riley said, the plan crystallizing. We ask them to work on the problem, separately at first, each contributing their expertise. Let them see the results before they realize who they're cooperating with. It was a maintenance trick older than space travel. When systems wouldn't interface directly, you built bridges, adapters, workarounds. The same principle could apply to people. It might work, Kestrel chimed in, his processes already running simulations. I can coordinate the technical aspects without revealing the source of each contribution, like a very complex recursive function where each part doesn't need to understand the whole. I still don't understand your humor subroutines, Sam muttered. That's because they're objectively perfect, Kestrel replied, with what might have been smugness. Riley turned to his team. Nalara, can you get the Keltari bioengineers to share their algae enhancement techniques? Frame it as a gift to the station, not a partnership with any faction. She nodded, understanding immediately. The third thermal caste would be honored to contribute to communal survival. Maya, approach the tech progressives about the optimization algorithms. Tell them it's a chance to prove AI-assisted management can work without full automation. On it. Tariq, you've got contacts in the Socialist Collective. See if they can provide volunteer labor for the processor reactivation. Emphasize it's about helping everyone breathe easier, not supporting any particular system. And the free traders? Yara asked. That's your department. They respect contracts and agreements. Offer them first distribution rights on any surplus oxygen, but only if they help design an efficient delivery system that ensures baseline supply for everyone first. What about the human purists? Sam asked. They won't contribute to anything involving alien technology. Riley considered this. The purists were the hardest to reach, their fear of contamination running deep. But fear, he'd learned, often masked other emotions. I'll handle them personally, he said. But first, we need proof this can work. The next 18 hours were a blur of careful coordination. Riley worked the maintenance tunnels he knew so well, but now with official access and a team of volunteers from various factions. They didn't know they were working alongside ideological enemies. They just knew they were fixing things that had been broken for too long. The first secondary processor came online after 6 hours of work. Riley watched the oxygen output metrics tick upward, feeling the same satisfaction he'd always gotten from a successful repair. But this was bigger than fixing a broken filter. This was fixing a broken society, one system at a time. Processor 2 is ready, Sam reported over comms. Though the Socialist Collective volunteers are asking why we're using free trader supply chain protocols. Tell them it's the most efficient method for this particular system, Riley replied, carefully not mentioning who had designed it. Results first, politics later. By hour 12, the Keltari biotechnology had increased algae production by 25%. The tech progressive algorithms had found inefficiencies in the circulation system that, once corrected, added another 15% capacity. The station was producing more oxygen than it had in years. "It's working," Nalara said, her presence warm against his consciousness as they took a brief rest in the hub. "But maintaining the cooperation once they realize—" "I know." Riley was exhausted, but the heat seed sustained him with shared energy. "That's why we need to talk to the purists now, while the results are undeniable." The human purist meeting hall was in one of the older sections of the station, deliberately chosen for its lack of alien architectural influences. Riley entered alone, though he could feel Nalara's presence in his mind, offering support from a distance. "The hybrid comes to contaminate us," someone called out as he entered. Riley recognized the speaker, Margaret Hollis, former middle manager in Apex's Human Resources Department. She'd built her identity around humanity's special destiny among the stars, and the heat seed challenged everything she believed. "I come to offer you a choice," Riley said, keeping his voice level. "The same choice I had. The same choice we all have." "We've made our choice," Margaret said. "Humanity, pure and undefiled, not some mongrel merger with alien parasites." "Funny thing about purity," Riley said, finding a seat despite not being offered one. "It's an illusion. You know what's in your body right now. Margaret, billions of bacteria, working in symbiosis. Your mitochondria. They were separate organisms once, before they merged with our ancestors' cells. Humanity has never been pure. We've always been a collaboration." "Sophistry," she spat. "Those are natural processes, not some alien agenda." "So was my merger with the heat seed. No agenda, no force. Just two forms of consciousness finding harmony." Riley leaned forward. "But I'm not here to convince you to accept the seed. I'm here to show you something." He pulled up the oxygen production statistics on his portable display. 12 hours ago, we were operating at standard capacity. Now we're at 140%. Every person on this station is breathing easier, including your members." Margaret frowned. "How?" "By fixing what Apex broke. By reactivating systems they deemed unprofitable. By optimizing processes they never bothered to improve." Riley let that sink in. Human ingenuity. Margaret, human determination. The same qualities you claim to champion. But the report said alien biotechnology was involved. As one component among many. The Keltari enhancement wouldn't work without human maintenance. The optimization algorithms need human oversight. Every improvement requires human hands to implement. Riley stood. "That's what you're missing. This isn't about replacing humanity. It's about humanity choosing to be more." "Pretty words," Margaret said, but there was less venom in it. "What do you want from us?" "Your expertise. Before Apex, before the factions, you were a logistics coordinator. You understand human workflow better than anyone. We need that knowledge. To further your alien agenda. To keep people breathing. Human people. Your people." Riley met her gaze steadily. "You can stay here, preaching purity while systems degrade. Or you can help ensure humanity thrives, even if it means working alongside others." The room fell silent. Riley could feel the tension, the fear warring with pragmatism. These people had defined themselves in opposition to change. Asking them to participate in it was asking them to abandon their identity. "I won't work with aliens," Margaret finally said. "You won't have to. Work with me, human to human. Let me be the bridge between your expertise and their technology. You never have to directly interface with anything non-human. And if we say no, then you breathe the same improved air as everyone else, knowing you contributed nothing to it. Your choice." He turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Margaret, that oxygen you're breathing right now, 40% of it comes from the improvements we made today. Just remember that when you're preaching about purity." Riley left them to their debates and returned to the hub to find chaos. The factions had discovered each other's involvement in the oxygen project. Free traders were accusing socialist collective members of sabotaging market mechanisms. Tech progressives were arguing with Keltari engineers about optimization priorities. The fragile cooperation was fracturing. So much for results first, politics later, Maya said, hand resting on her shock baton as tempers flared. Riley felt the heat seed pulse with an idea. Dangerous, like all his ideas lately, but necessary. "Everyone stop," he said, not shouting, but letting the harmonics carry his voice. The arguing factions turned to him. "You want to know why I didn't tell you who you were working with? Look at the displays." The oxygen production metrics still showed their 40% improvement. 12 hours, he continued. That's all it took. 12 hours of cooperation. And we solved a problem Apex claimed was unsolvable. But the moment you realized who you were working with, you stopped caring about the solution and started caring about the credit. The free traders subverted our collective effort for profit. Someone from the socialist faction accused. "We provided efficient distribution networks," a trader shot back. "Something your commune fantasies always ignore." Enough. Riley stepped into the center of the group. "You want to know the truth. None of you solved this. We did. Together. The traders' networks are useless without the collective's labor. The labor is pointless without tech progressive optimization. The optimization fails without Keltari enhancement. Every piece needs every other piece." That's exactly what Apex said. Margaret Hollis's voice cut through. She'd followed him from the purest hall. "That we all needed them to coordinate. How is your vision any different?" Riley smiled sadly. "Because I'm not selling you anything. I'm not profiting from your cooperation. I'm just a maintenance tech who knows that systems work better when all the parts function together." "You're more than that," Margaret said, and there was something like fear in her voice. "You're infected with alien consciousness. How do we know this isn't all manipulation?" Before Riley could respond, Nalara stepped forward. The factions tensed, especially the purists. But she moved slowly, deliberately non-threatening. "You're right to be cautious," she said. Her harmonics carefully modulated to avoid triggering fear responses. "My species has made mistakes. We once believed isolation was safety. That purity of thought was strength. It nearly destroyed us." She moved closer to Margaret, who stood frozen between flight and confrontation. "The heat seed isn't infection," Nalara continued. "It's invitation. It doesn't replace what you are. It adds to it. Riley is still human. Still the maintenance tech who got drunk and complained about corporate oversight. But now he's also part of something larger. By choice." "Easy for you to say," Margaret replied. "Your species created this thing. Of course you'd trust it." "No," Nalara said softly. "My species received it. From whom? We don't know. It came to us in our darkest hour, when we were fragmenting, dying. It showed us that diversity of thought strengthens the whole. That harmony doesn't require homogeny." Riley felt the truth of it through their connection. The Keltari's history, their salvation through unity in diversity. But more than that, he felt Nalara's vulnerability in sharing this truth with those who might reject it. "So we're all supposed to just merge consciousnesses and hope for the best?" Margaret asked. "No," Riley said firmly. "The seed chooses its hosts, and hosts choose to accept. It can't be forced, can't be weaponized. That's why Apex wanted to dissect it, to find a way around the choice. But choice is the entire point. Then why share it at all? Because the challenges we face are bigger than any one species can handle. Apex was just the beginning. There are other corporations, other systems of control. We need bridges between cultures, translators between worldviews. We need understanding that goes deeper than words." Sam Trent stepped forward. 2 months ago, I would have agreed with the purists. Humanity first, humanity pure. Then I watched pure humans charge children to breathe. I watched alien compassion save those children. Maybe it's time we stopped worrying about purity and started worrying about survival. The room fell into uncomfortable silence. Riley could feel the shift, the moment when fixed positions began to soften. Not agreement, not yet, but the beginning of possibility. Fine, Margaret said finally. We'll contribute to the oxygen project, but we work through human intermediaries. No direct alien contact. I'll coordinate, Sam offered. Former Apex, currently unemployed. Human as they come. Margaret studied him, recognizing a kindred spirit in transformation. Acceptable. One by one, the factions began negotiating. Not unity, but cooperation. Not trust, but willingness to verify. Riley felt the heat seed pulse with something like satisfaction. This was how change really happened. Not through grand gestures, but through small compromises. Little steps toward a shared future. We need formal structures, Yara observed, as the groups dispersed to implement their agreements. This ad hoc cooperation won't last without framework. I know. Riley was exhausted, but oddly exhilarated. But it's a start. 2 months ago, these people would have killed each other over resources. Now they're arguing about implementation details. Progress, Maya agreed. Messy human progress. A chime from the communication system interrupted. Kestrel's voice filled the hub, uncharacteristically subdued. We have a problem. Long-range sensors are detecting incoming vessels. Configuration matches Apex corporate fleet. Estimated arrival, 6 hours. The fragile cooperation they'd built suddenly faced its first real test. Apex hadn't given up. They'd simply regrouped. How many ships? Riley asked, though he dreaded the answer. 3 heavy cruisers, 6 patrol vessels, military grade, not commercial. They're broadcasting demands for immediate station surrender and return of stolen corporate assets. By assets, they mean us, Nalara said quietly. They mean the station itself, Yara corrected. Under their interpretation of contract law, everyone who breathes subsidized air owes them compensation. They're coming to collect. Riley looked around the hub at his unlikely alliance. Former corporate enforcers and anti-corporate revolutionaries, human purists and alien refugees, free traders and socialists. All of them united by nothing more than the desire to breathe free. Then we'd better give them something they're not expecting, he said. Kestrel, broadcast this on all channels. Let every faction hear it. He stood, feeling the heat seed lend strength to his words. Apex is coming. They want their station back, their control back, their profits back. We can fragment, let them divide and reconquer. Or we can stand together. Not as one voice, but as many voices in harmony. Not agreeing on everything, but agreeing that we won't go back to paying for the right to exist. The hub's displays lit up with responses from across the station. Fear, anger, determination. But underneath it all, a growing resolve. 6 hours, Riley continued. That's what we have. 6 hours to show them that Halcyon Spoke isn't corporate property anymore. It's home. Our home. All of us. Pure humans and hybrids. Traders and workers. Natives and refugees. 6 hours to prove that cooperation isn't weakness, but strength. What do you need us to do? Margaret's voice came through the comm. The purest leader, offering to help. Riley felt Nalara's hand find his, their shared consciousness pulsing with hope and fear in equal measure. What we've always done, he said. Fix what's broken. Together. 6 hours. Riley stood in the observation deck, watching the distant points of light that were Apex warships grow steadily brighter. Around him, the station buzzed with activity, unlike anything in its history. Former enemies worked side by side, preparing for a confrontation that would determine whether their fragile experiment in cooperation could survive its first real test. Defense grid is operational, Maya reported from her position at the tactical console. Though calling it a defense grid is generous. We've got maintenance lasers and some repurposed mining charges against military cruisers. She didn't need to finish. Everyone knew they couldn't win a conventional fight. But Riley wasn't planning on fighting conventionally. Status on the heat seed carriers. He asked Nalara, who was coordinating with the Keltari delegation. 17 volunteers have successfully bonded, she replied, her harmonics carrying undertones of wonder. Each bringing their own perspective to the collective understanding. The diversity is remarkable. Riley felt them through his own connection. A constellation of consciousness, each maintaining their individuality while sharing something deeper. A free trader who now understood the fear behind socialist resource hoarding. A tech progressive who felt the human purist's terror of losing identity. Each bridge built understanding without erasing difference. It's not enough, Margaret Hollis said from where she stood apart, still uncomfortable in this alliance of necessity. 17 people with expanded consciousness won't stop pulse cannons. No, Riley agreed. But they might stop the people firing them. The recursive joke protocol is ready, Kestrel announced. Though I maintain my humor, subroutines are perfectly calibrated for human enjoyment. Despite the tension, Sam Trent snorted. Your jokes make my brain hurt. That's how you know they're working, Kestrel replied with satisfaction. Tariq moved between groups, his documentary equipment capturing everything. Whatever happens, people need to see this. 17 factions choosing cooperation over control. It's the story Apex doesn't want told. Speaking of stories. Yara entered, her diplomatic robes replaced with practical station gear. The Commonwealth is watching. They can't intervene directly, but Dr. Webb has been arguing our case. He calls what's happening here evolution in action. Evolution's messy, Riley said, thinking of all the extinct branches on humanity's family tree. Not everything survives. No, Nalara agreed, her presence warm against his consciousness. But what does survive is stronger for the testing. An alarm chimed, 5 hours until arrival. Riley turned to address the assembled representatives. Human purists standing next to Keltari engineers, free traders beside socialist collective workers, all of them looking to him for answers he didn't have. I'm not going to lie to you, he began. We can't match Apex's firepower. We can't buy them off. We can't run. What we can do is show them something they've never seen before. A station that works without corporate oversight. People who choose cooperation without coercion. A future they can't buy or sell. Inspiring, Margaret said dryly. But corporations respond to force and profit, not idealism. Then we give them something else to respond to. Riley pulled up the station schematics. Apex is expecting to retake a valuable asset. What if it's not valuable anymore? Confused murmurs rippled through the crowd. He's not suggesting we destroy the station, Maya said quickly, understanding dawning. He's suggesting we make it worthless to them. Exactly, Kestrel. Show them the liberation protocol. The AI's displays lit up with cascading code. Over the past weeks, I've been analyzing Apex's proprietary systems. Their atmospheric processors, their water reclamation, their power generation. All of it locked behind patents and encryption. So someone asked, so I've created open source alternatives for everything. Free, unpatented, available to anyone. If we implement them, Halcyon Spoke becomes worthless to Apex. They can't charge for what we give away freely. That's brilliant, a tech progressive breathed. But the implementation time? 4 hours with everyone working together, Riley said. I've run the numbers. We can strip out every piece of Apex tech and replace it with community alternatives. They'll arrive to find a station they can't monetize. They'll destroy us out of spite, Margaret predicted. Maybe. Or maybe they'll realize there's no profit in ruling ashes. Riley met each representative's gaze. It's a risk, but the alternative is going back to paying for every breath. Your choice. The debate was swift and heated. But the outcome was never really in doubt. They'd tasted freedom. None of them wanted to go back. What followed was the most intensive maintenance operation in the station's history. Every faction contributed their expertise. Human purists worked on manual overrides, their distrust of automation becoming an asset. Socialist collective members coordinated resource distribution with surprising efficiency. Free traders handled logistics with market-honed precision. Tech progressives optimized every system for open access rather than profit. Riley moved between teams, the heat seed allowing him to translate concepts between different worldviews. When conflicts arose, and they did, he helped each side see the other's perspective without losing their own. "This is what you meant," Nalara said, during a brief rest, watching humans and Keltari engineers solve a compatibility problem through gestures and shared diagrams. Unity without uniformity. "It's messy," Riley admitted. "They still don't like each other, but they hate Apex more." "Sometimes that's enough to start," she touched his hand, sharing a pulse of warmth. "The seed chose well. The seed chose a drunk maintenance tech who couldn't say no to someone in need." "Exactly." 3 hours until arrival. The transformation was remarkable. Where once proprietary Apex systems had controlled everything, now open-source alternatives hummed with life. The atmospheric processors ran on community-standard protocols. Water reclamation used public domain filtration. Even the power grid had been liberated, running on algorithms freely shared rather than licensed. "It's working," Sam reported, his voice carrying disbelief. "Every system is operational, better than operational. Without the profit optimization constraints, efficiency is up 8% across the board." "Of course it is," Kestrel said. "Recursive functions are inherently more elegant than corporate spaghetti code." But their triumph was interrupted by an unexpected broadcast. Director Sarah Vance's face appeared on every screen, transmitted from the lead Apex cruiser. "Citizens of Halcyon spoke," she began, her enhanced features as perfect and cold as ever. "You have stolen corporate property, violated binding contracts, and corrupted proprietary biological assets. You have 1 hour to surrender Riley Hart and the Keltari terrorist. Comply, and we will consider lenient terms for the rest of you." The transmission cut off, leaving silence in its wake. "Well," Maya said, "at least we know what they want." "They want the heat seed," Nalara corrected. "Riley and I are just the carriers." "Then we give them something else to think about," Riley decided. "Kestrel, can you broadcast to their fleet?" "Naturally, though they may not appreciate my humor. Save the jokes for later. Put me through." The connection established, and Riley found himself facing Vance on the main screen. Her expression flickered with surprise before settling back into corporate calm. "Mr. Hart, ready to surrender. Director Vance, ready to listen." "You have nothing we want to hear. How about the complete technical specifications for consciousness bridging?" Riley felt Nalara's alarm through their connection, but pressed on. "The heat seed's biological mechanisms, how to create more, how to control the process." Vance leaned forward, interest cracking her facade. "You're offering to sell out your alien allies." "I'm offering to share what Apex tried to steal, freely, openly, with everyone." "What?" "In 30 minutes, we're broadcasting everything. How the heat seed works. How consciousness bridging creates understanding without erasing identity. How 17 different people have already proven it safe. The entire galaxy will know what Apex was trying to monopolize." "You can't. That's proprietary information belonging to no one," Riley interrupted. "The Keltari received it freely. They share it freely. Just like we're sharing the atmospheric processors, the water reclamation, everything Apex tried to own. This is theft. This is evolution. And you can either be part of it or be left behind." Vance's perfect features twisted with rage. "You think giving away trade secrets will stop us? We have the firepower to take what we want." From one station, Maybe. But what happens when every station has access to these technologies? When every world can create their own systems without paying Apex licensing fees? Riley leaned back, projecting confidence he didn't entirely feel. Your shareholders might have questions about why you're wasting resources attacking a station that's giving away what you're trying to sell. Prepare for boarding, Vance snarled, cutting the connection. 2 hours until arrival. But Riley had planted the seed of doubt. More importantly, Tariq was already broadcasting, his documentary streaming live to every system that would receive it. The story was out. Halcyon Spoke's transformation from corporate asset to community resource was becoming galactic news. Incoming transmission, Kestrel announced. Multiple sources. Other stations want the open source specifications. Send them everything, Riley ordered. Atmospheric processing, water reclamation, consciousness bridging protocols if any heat seeds find their way to them. Everything free. This is insane, Margaret said. But there was something like admiration in her voice. You're trying to revolutionize the entire galaxy with free software. It's working, isn't it? Riley gestured to the functioning station around them. Every system Apex claimed only they could run is working better without them. The ships are accelerating, Maya warned. 90 minutes to weapons range. Riley felt the weight of the moment. Everything they'd built, every bridge between factions, every small victory over corporate control, all balanced on a knife's edge. The heat seed pulsed with complex emotions from all its carriers. Fear, hope, determination, and underneath it all, a growing sense of connection that transcended species and ideology. All hands, he broadcast, his voice carrying throughout the station. This is Riley Hart. In 90 minutes. Apex will be in weapons range. They're coming to take back what they think they own. But here's the thing about ownership. You can't own air. You can't own water. You can't own the connections between conscious beings. You can't own what people freely share. He paused, feeling 17 different perspectives flowing through the Heatseed network, each adding their voice to his understanding. We've proven something impossible these past hours. 17 factions working together without anyone in charge. Human purists and alien refugees sharing labor. Free traders and socialists solving problems. Not because we like each other, but because we like breathing more than we like fighting. Margaret Hollis stepped forward. The human purist faction stands with the station. We may not trust alien influence, but we trust corporate control even less. One by one, other faction leaders declared their commitment. The free traders wouldn't return to monopoly. The socialist collective wouldn't accept artificial scarcity. The tech progressives wouldn't let algorithms serve profit over people. Each voice different, but harmonizing around a simple truth: they were better together than under Apex's thumb. Kestrel, Riley said quietly, initialize the recursive defense protocol. With pleasure. Though I maintain, this is an entirely practical application of humor theory. The protocol was elegant in its simplicity. Every system on the station began broadcasting Kestrel's recursive jokes on Apex frequencies. Not just one joke, but millions of variations, each building on itself, creating an exponential flood of algorithmic humor that would overwhelm their communication systems. Will it work? Nalara asked. Against their military systems, no. But their corporate systems run on the same frequencies. Every ship in their fleet is about to discover what happens when profit algorithms try to process recursive humor. Riley smiled grimly. Best case, we confuse them. Worst case, Kestrel gets to tell his jokes to a captive audience. 60 minutes to contact. The tension was unbearable. But then, something unexpected happened. One of the Apex patrol vessels began broadcasting. Halcyon spoke. This is Captain Foster of the APX Profit Margin. I'm receiving some very interesting jokes over here. Also, some very interesting documentation about consciousness bridging and community cooperation. Riley recognized the voice. Janet Foster, one of the few Apex captains who'd risen through merit rather than connections. "Captain Foster," he responded, enjoying the humor. "My AI is having an existential crisis trying to process these recursions. But more importantly, my crew is asking questions, like why we're about to attack a station for giving away what we've been fighting to control." "Janet, maintain formation," Vance's voice cut in. "That's an order." "With respect, Director, I joined Apex to explore the stars, not to shake down stations for protection money. If they're offering these technologies freely, they're thieves. Or they're the future," Foster countered. "My crew includes 3 species who've been gene-locked by our patents. They're wondering why they're fighting to maintain their own oppression." Another ship broadcast agreement, then another. The careful corporate hierarchy was fracturing under the weight of its own contradictions. "Any ship that refuses orders will be fired upon," Vance declared. "By who?" Foster asked. "Director, look around. Half your fleet is having the same conversation. We joined Apex for stability, for purpose. But if that purpose is just maintaining artificial scarcity..." Riley felt the moment balance on a razor's edge. He thought of that first morning, waking with Nalara sitting on his chest, choosing warmth over rules. Every choice since had led to this moment. "Captain Foster," he broadcast on an open channel. "Halcyon spoke, offers sanctuary to any vessel that chooses cooperation over coercion. We can't pay corporate salaries, but we can offer something better. Purpose, community, the chance to build rather than extract." "This is treason," Vance hissed. "No," Foster replied. "This is evolution." 3 patrol vessels broke formation, moving to defensive positions around the station. The remaining Apex ships hesitated, caught between orders and opportunity. "All ships, this is Director Vance. Prepare for..." Her transmission cut off. In its place, Kestrel's voice emerged from the lead cruiser. "Apologies for the interruption. The Director is experiencing technical difficulties. Specifically, her command codes have been recursively encrypted. She should regain access in approximately..." "Never. Did you know that never is just even reversed? Neither did her security protocols." "Kestrel," Riley breathed. "How?" "Captain Foster's crew includes an AI specialist who appreciated my humor. We've been exchanging recursive functions. It turns out Apex's command structure is remarkably vulnerable to jokes it doesn't understand." The remaining Apex ships hung in space, leaderless and confused. But without Vance's absolute authority, individual captains began making individual choices. One by one, they stood down. "This is impossible," Margaret said, watching corporate unity dissolve. "You beat them with jokes and hope." "We beat them by showing their own people a better way," Riley corrected. "Apex worked because everyone believed there was no alternative. We proved otherwise." "The Commonwealth is moving," Yara announced. "With Apex's fleet standing down, they're offering to mediate. Dr. Webb is personally leading the delegation." Riley felt exhaustion crash over him like a wave. The heat seed had sustained him through the crisis. But he was still human, still the maintenance tech who'd started this journey hungover and confused. "What happens now?" Nalara asked, her hand finding his. "Now we do the hard part," Riley said. "We build something that lasts. Not just here, but everywhere people are tired of paying for what should be free." "The heat seeds are spreading," she confirmed. "Other carriers are emerging on liberated ships, in stations across the sector, each choosing connection over isolation. And Apex will adapt or die," Yara said pragmatically. "Some subsidiaries are already announcing open-source initiatives. Others are doubling down on control. The galaxy is choosing sides." Riley looked around at the unlikely alliance surrounding him. Former enemies planning a shared future. It wasn't perfect. They still disagreed on almost everything except the fundamental right to breathe free. But maybe that was enough. "I need a drink," he announced. "A real one, not synthetic swill. Who's with me?" "The hero of the revolution wants to get drunk," Margaret asked with something approaching humor. "The maintenance tech who accidentally started a revolution wants to toast the people who finished it," Riley corrected. "Besides, I've got a reputation to maintain." They gathered in what had been Grizz's low-G bar, now renamed the Free Breath Tavern. Humans and aliens, purists and hybrids, traders and workers. All of them raised glasses of various liquids in a toast to improbable victory. "To fixing things," Maya proposed. "To breaking things that need breaking," Sam added. "To recursive humor," Kestrel chimed in. "Did you know that—" "To choosing each other," Nalara interrupted, saving them from another joke. Her eyes refracted light in patterns of joy. "Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." Riley felt the heat seed pulse with warmth. Through it, he sensed the growing network of consciousness bridges, each unique, each choosing connection without losing identity. The revolution wasn't ending. It was just beginning. "6 months ago, I was nobody," he said quietly. "A disgraced maintenance tech drinking himself to sleep. Now you're still nobody," Margaret said, but she was smiling. "Just a nobody who changed everything." "We changed everything," Riley corrected. "All of us. By choosing to see each other as more than resources to exploit or threats to fear." He raised his glass one more time. "To Halcyon Spoke, the station where humanity learned to breathe free." They drank, and for a moment, all was right in their small corner of the galaxy. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Other corporations would try to fill Apex's void. The factions would splinter and reform. The work of building true community would never end. But tonight, they celebrated the impossible. A drunk maintenance tech and an alien queen had sparked a revolution with nothing but warmth and truth. The galaxy would never be the same. "So," Tariq said, his documentary equipment finally set aside, "who's up for hearing Kestrel's latest joke?" The groans were universal, transcending species and ideology. Some things, Riley reflected, united everyone, even if that thing was avoiding recursive humor. "Actually," Kestrel said, "I've been working on a new format. Observational comedy about the absurdity of charging for basic necessities. Did you ever notice how—" Riley tuned out the AI's routine, focusing instead on the warmth of Nalara beside him and the impossible sight of former enemies laughing together. The heat seed pulsed with contentment. They'd done more than survive. They'd shown that another way was possible. And that, more than any weapon or strategy, was how revolutions really spread. One connection at a time, one choice at a time, one shared breath at a time. In the distance, former Apex ships were already requesting docking permission, their crews eager to learn about this new way of living. The work would never end. But looking around at the faces of his friends, his chosen family, Riley wouldn't have it any other way. He'd gotten drunk on a space station and woken up with an alien queen on his chest. Everything had changed. And for the first time in his life, Riley Hart knew exactly who he was meant to be. Not the bridge, not a hero, just a maintenance tech who fixed things, starting with himself.